Hey, everybody. Welcome to Screentime. Gary, Tanguay, Yanno. It's movies, streaming, and more. We're going to talk about a classic spy series. We don't have any UFOs. We don't have any ghosts. We don't have anything that's creepy or supernatural, or we don't have any drugs or addiction. It's just a
No
good
dragons.
no dragons. Thank you. No dragons. It's just a good old-fashioned spy series, which I love, and I love because of the characters, and it's Jack Ryan. And you don't have to have been a fan of Clancy to enjoy the series, in my opinion. That's what's great about it, because we all know Tom Clancy. The first Clancy I read was Patriot Games, which I could not put down. I thought it was fantastic. And then
Hunt for Red October was the very first.
That's right. And I went back and I read it after.
Mm.
I read that after I read Patriot Games. I still thought Patriot Games was better than Hunt for Red October because it was so thrilling at the end.
Oh, it's great.
I mean, I couldn't put down the book. I got off an airplane at Logan and I literally sat down in one of the waiting areas to finish the book. And then of Some of All Fears, and then he went on to write many, many more. But what they've done, Drew, which I find interesting with this series, which stars John Krasinski and Wendell Pierce and Michael Kelly, came on in the second season, and has now come on to the third season, is they kind of do what Hulu's done with Castle Rock with Stephen King, is they blend a lot of the stories in together. There's a theme, like season 3 is based on the Hunt for Red October. I read loosely.
It's
right?
loosely. Yeah.
I mean, it's not the same, right? Because in the Hunt for Red October, at the end of the movie, Sean Connery and Alec Baldwin, I get a kick out of this one being from Maine. The sub is like going up the river.
Yeah.
Off the coast of Maine, right?
Yeah.
Like, okay, I don't know if there's a river that deep that can handle a Soviet sub coming off the coast of Maine, but I don't know. We'll see. But I just think they've done a great job with the series.
Yeah, you think back. First of all, there's the books, right? Which Clancy was a phenomenon when they came out, and everybody would rush out and get the next book, and it was fantastic. And then they did the movie Hunt for Red October with was it Harrison Ford?
No, that was I think it was Alec Baldwin.
And it was Baldwin, right? It was Baldwin in Hunt for Red October and Harrison Ford in Patriot Games.
Patriot Games.
And then eventually it was Ben Affleck.
Right.
And now we got John Krasinski. Yeah, no, exactly. I love Krasinski. I think he's really good. It surprises me how good he is playing this part. And, he's not classically handsome, right? But he's a man's man. And, it's what you want. He's a BC grad, right? He's a Boston College grad. And, he just carries it. I think he's great. And Wendell Pierce is fantastic.
Yeah, let's talk about Krasinski for a minute, because no one after The Office saw him leaping to being the hero in films the way he has. I know that when his wife was shooting Jungle Cruise with The Rock in Hawaii, that Krasinski was out there working out with him. That's when it all started, when he started to do, these military movies. And
he did the Benghazi movie, right?
The Benghazi movie,
he was the Special Forces guy. That's what I think really opened their eyes that he could do this.
Well, it's surprising because, Drew, you have said it. The reluctant hero is always the best hero. That's why Bruce Willis, right? Bruce Willis in all of
Die Hard, but Die Hard's classic. Reluctant hero.
Yeah, like, I don't want to do this.
I got to do this.
Right. Yeah, and
Krasinski in this, he plays it well. He does it well.
Yeah, and who would have thought Jim from The Office could have gone on to do this? But he's done a great job with it. And how much? This is my fault, kid. Should have silenced my phone. Bad. -5. How much of a problem do you think, or of a challenge is it now to do just a traditional, straightforward story without all the dragons and the spirits and the?
It's the challenge of Hollywood these days. And first of all, Hollywood isn't even Hollywood anymore, but it's the challenge because we've seen everything. We've seen everything. And the classic Hollywood thing is, give me something familiar but different. Oh, makes no sense, right? That's
right.
An oxymoron. But that's what they want. They want to give you something familiar, but with a different twist. And I guess the twist here is probably Krasinski, because look, they went back to the Russians for the bad guys in the third season, and the Russians were always right on for Red October. It was always
Sure.
the Russian, So I think it's hard to do. I think it's hard for, and now the search for material for all these streaming services and movies to a lesser extent, because we've talked about movies being dead. It's just so hard. So the short answer is yes, it's hard, and they pulled it off. And as much as you can tell, it's the number one thing on Prime, right?
Amazon Prime, yeah. Well,
but remember, it's not like the old days when it was all movies and Monday morning they told you what number one on the box office was or number two in the box office was, right? You had like this definitive thing to tell you what number one was.
Right.
We don't have that anymore, especially with streaming. So you got to just rely on the streaming services to tell you, and they tell you, oh, this is number one. Oh, okay. But people are talking about it. Everybody knows watching it.
The two series in both, one is on Freevee now, or what used to be IMDb, is the second version of Bosch. Bosch on Amazon Prime, the first go around with Titus Welliver, I thought was fantastic. I thought the characters were phenomenal, and I thought they did a great job with just a straight series. Again, Michael Connelly took his stories, and they've done it here with Jack Ryan. And it all comes down to the characters, and it all comes down to the actors. And while you certainly need the writing, I'm going to give credit to casting for both Jack Ryan and Bosch, because the thing with the casting is the characters have to be real. Okay, so you have Krasinski, who has the boyish good looks, but there's still something innocent about him. We all know the character of Jack Ryan, if people aren't familiar with him, he's an intellectual spy. Throughout the series of books, he teaches at the Naval Academy. The guy can do it all, right? He can do it all. He can shoot a machine gun, and he also knows how a nuclear sub works, right?
And he thinks fast.
And
I
he
love that
thinks fast.
He thinks fast.
He thinks fast. So Krasinski has that ability because he looks like you said he went to BC or Harvard, but he also has the ability to play that action hero. And then you go to Wendell Pierce, okay? And he came on as he was in season 1. He is the cranky old CIA operative that has to work with the new guy in Jack Ryan, who's been brought in, and Pierce is phenomenal, and also on Broadway in Death of a Salesman. And how many times have we seen Wendell Pierce on the screen? And once again, in Jack Ryan, he hits it out of the park.
Well, remember, he was in The Wire. It was phenomenal in The Wire. And, but you can't ignore the writing. Carlton Cuse is a great writer. Graham Rowland is one of the writers. My wife would just marvel at the dialogue because it was smart. It was smart and clever.
Right.
I love the character of the woman prime minister of Czechoslovakia. She was great. And every time they talked, it was like, it wasn't, on the nose dialogue. It was really good. So, I love that part of it. They're not breaking much new ground, really, but it's entertaining. It's what it's supposed to be. It's entertainment, right? So it entertained me for 8 episodes, and I didn't have much problem with it. A little hard to follow. It was interesting. I don't know if my daughter said it. They filmed it. A lot of it was in the dark,
right?
And they probably saved money, in terms of staging and stuff like that. So that made it interesting. But it was pretty simple. It's a pretty simple story.
It was pretty simple. And I also think because, like, to recap, in season 1, they were dealing with terrorism. In season 2, they were dealing with the drug cartel.
Yep.
And then in season 3, the Russians are back, thanks to Putin, unfortunately. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what
they dance around the Ukraine thing. And
right. And so it's basically what's going on, unfortunately, right now in Eastern Europe. And they have a coup. There's a coup that's going to take place in the Soviet Union. So they take that and they blend it with a longtime Soviet operative, which is
all the way back to 1969.
Yeah,
real.
And that was great.
War.
Goes back to
the war was really cold then.
Explains why, I don't want to give this away, but explains why this operative, this high-ranking Soviet operative, wants to put a stop to this coup in what's happening, because there are some bad guys in Russia that want to start World War III. And this character, the operative, is really Sean Connery, right? I mean, that's the parallelism. Sean Connery takes the sub and But so this operative is taking that role. And the key to me in like when you go to the Bosch series, all the detectives are real. They're not all good looking. They're paunchy, they're tired, they're haggard, they're great characters, right? You know, even Harry Bosch is like, Welliver doesn't play him like Welliver wears reading glasses, you know. Wendell Pierce is, overweight.
Let's say it. He's fat.
Well, right. But and even in season 2, he was sick, right? He was sick. He had issues and
Muslim.
And he's Muslim, which is also very interesting.
Very clever.
That's very clever how he's an American Muslim. I mean, this is his faith, but yet he's,
So and he's working in Spagcraft.
Right.
And by the way, I said it was simple. I didn't mean that the story's simple, because actually it was kind of hard to follow at first. And, my wife kept saying, stop, tell me what's going on, because she didn't understand. And I'd have to like stop and think about it.
Right.
And the problem with the Russian names also confuse you. Like, wait, which one's Peter? Which one's Luca? Which one's this guy?
That was confusing.
So yes, it was simple, but you had to pay attention.
Yeah, but I want to go back to what, with Pierce and Muslim is breaking down stereotypes.
Yes, totally.
And that was terrific. It's breaking down stereotypes. That you could be Muslim in America and believe in what we are in this country. So I think that's refreshing. And then so Pierce is great, and I mean he's killing it on Broadway as Death of a Salesman. The great thing I love about the cantankerous Pierce along with Krasinski is they say in season 3, how come you didn't put? Somebody says to Krasinski, how come you didn't put Wendell Pierce down as a reference? Yeah. Right. So there's still
Jim Greer.
How come you didn't put Jim Greer down as a reference? Which is a great name. What a great name for an agent, Jim Greer. I mean, it says who he is. I mean, they still clash, but there's this affection for each other, but it's like this, I don't know, older brother, younger brother rivalry type of thing.
That's what helps take like a familiar story and make it, different. That's what does it.
Right.
They're not instant, pals.
Well, another thing that's great about Jim Greer and about Pierce is because of his physicality, you can have Krasinski who's running on rooftops, right? But Greer has to use his head. Yeah. He's not running any races.
One of my favorite lines is when the guy said, "You were never here." And he goes, "Well, this isn't the first time I wasn't in Moscow."
Right. And he uses his brain which is really smart. And that's hard to do in writing. The other guy we have to talk about is Michael Kelly, who I first saw in House of Cards. And then I remembered I recognized him from a monster.com commercial that ran on the Super Bowl. But this, it's weird. It's a long story, but I saw that I was working with somebody and I saw this monster.com ad that was a big Super Bowl ad, and it was Michael Kelly. I went, oh my God. And Doug in House of Cards was unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Good actor. He's a really good actor.
He's a really good actor because less is more.
And again, they've written him beautifully, because he's sort of skirting the edge now when he's out of the CIA. Like they go see the guy who can get you nuclear material, right? And he's, oh, this is what I do, right?
Right.
Better and me doing this than somebody else, right?
And that gives you freedom.
Yeah.
He was also really good in the second season too, because when he entered the second season, I didn't know which side he was on.
Yeah.
Like I just was like, who's this dude? Yeah. And then if you go back to House of Cards, in which Kelly was in, he also had great scenes with Rachel Brosnahan. Remember, Rachel Brosnahan was the prostitute. She was the prostitute that was with the senator that was killed, and Doug had to handle her. And now Michael Kelly's gone on to do great things, and Rachel Brosnahan has gone on to be, having a great show on Amazon Prime herself. But Kelly's, that's the great thing about streaming is, look, you can have your network shows, which my wife loves, she loves to just tune out to NCIS or SWAT. Everybody on there's in the gym. I mean, they're all like, and the dialogue is right on the nose.
It's way too on the nose for me.
It's just way too on the nose. I mean, they come.
I joke every time I see one of the previews because it's
Yeah.
so on the nose.
And like they got 4 guys coming into this big screen with all the data on. Well, we saw the Camaro was heading down I-95. Well, we got to get over now and get the M80s, and then we get over here and we do this. Okay, let's roll. It's like, okay,
a lot of exposition.
Yeah, and now everybody knows what's going on. But with these streaming shows, they don't do that. Like you said, the writing is so smart.
Yeah, a lot of people they're going to watch and they go, now this is my favorite season, or is this the worst season? And I looked it up to see what people are thinking, and you go on IMDb and you go on Rotten Tomatoes, and a lot of people are saying, oh no, this is the best one, and a lot of people are saying, oh no, it's the worst one, it's unwatchable. It's not unwatchable, it was great. I don't know, it's hard for me to choose, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. Let's put it that way. And that's what you want from streaming. You watch 8 episodes. When you're done, are you happy? That was me. I was done. I was happy, and I could recommend it.
Well, I recommend this. I still like season 1 a lot. But I would say the reason I like the ending in season 3 better. Because the ending in season 1, which if I remember correctly, was a shootout in a train station or an airport. You knew that was going to come down. Like you knew, like you had the bad guys and the good guys, and it was going to be a final battle. And it was going to be guns, right?
Yeah.
I didn't know how this was going to end. I knew it was going to end, so the audience would be happy, but I didn't know how.
They did it nicely with the 2 ships. It's interesting. They had somehow ended up on 2 ships because the one Russian guy was back in the project, right? He was one of the ones who survived that, and he's now an admiral. So they had to put Jack on a ship. Remember, they dumped him in the water because.
Well, that's a great scene. We can't land on the boat. We'll get you on this way. Yeah. So we highly recommend it. Jack Ryan. You anything else on it, Drew?
No, I heard the season 4 is coming, and it's going to be the last one. So it'll be interesting to see how they wrap it up. But how do you ever wrap up? You'd think Jack Ryan had been wrapped up before this with, Harrison Ford and Ben Affleck and all that. It'll come back.
Yeah, I mean, it'll probably just come back with another actor. Krasinski wants to do something else.
But Krasinski can probably stand up there with the rest of them.
He's terrific. As is Michael Kelly, as is Wendell Pierce. Terrific cast all the way around. All right, that'll do it for movies, streaming, and more. Drew Yanno, Gary Tanguay. Thanks for watching Screentime.